Hey everyone, welcome to class. Took me a couple minutes to get everything set up here, and it is currently very warm in Seattle. And if you don't live in the Pacific Northwest, you don't know, but a lot of folks do not have air conditioning, and I am a lot of folks. So I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to get settled in, but thank you for joining me today. We're going to make lemon-herb shrimp and orzo. This is a fun one pot dinner that I make every once in a while. I make it quite frequently actually, especially in these summer months, like when it's warm, as it is today, and I don't want to heat up the house any more than I need to. So today we'll get started with sort of this version. This version has obviously shrimp. We're going to be using Jovial's gluten-free brown rice orzo to make it a gluten-free dinner. And we're going to use some zucchini, but I make this with asparagus, tomatoes, kind of whatever is in season and kind of looking good at the farmer's market. So feel free to shout out in the chat. I can see that the chat's active, and Sean's going to be here monitoring the chat for me and asking any of your questions, so I can hopefully answer those as we go. But feel free to introduce yourselves. Let folks know where you're from. After all, we're here to build community, and that is what we'll be hopefully doing through today's class. So I'm just heating up my pan here on this cooktop, and once we get that heated, we'll kind of get things going. But I have everything mise en place already. I've got my zucchini, and things are like ready to go. So we'll go through this pretty quickly. But like I said, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat and Sean will let me know, and I'll answer those as we go. But thank you again for being here. A special shout out again to Jovial for being a supporter of this class, as well as Food Social and the team there. So Food Social, if you're not familiar, is a recipe collective and market. And if you shop the market at foodsocial.io, you can use code PESTO to get 10% off any of the products, including these products we're featuring with this dish. So I'm going to see, my pot is not quite heated up, but let me get it going here. We're almost there. One of the things that I will start with, because this is what's going to go in first, is this shrimp. I always use 21 to 25 count, but any large or jumbo shrimp will work for this recipe. I got these prepped by patting them dry after they thawed with paper towels so they're nice and dry. But we'll go ahead and season these up just with some salt and pepper before they get ready to go into the skillet. So just a liberal seasoning of salt and pepper, and then we'll season the other side when we drop them into the hot pan, which we'll get to in a second. Okay. So as you're ready to go here, you're going to put a couple of tablespoons of that olive oil in your pot, and once that gets heated up, we will drop our shrimp in here. And I'm pretty close here already, I can tell. So we're going to just sear these shrimp for a couple of minutes on each side. I'll drop them in, season the other side, and it'll be time to pull them out. You don't want to overcook these shrimp because you're going to put them back in at the end to tie everything together. So once your shrimp get in here and start going, my pot isn't quite as hot as I would like it, but we'll get there. Shrimp cook very quickly, like I said, about 2 minutes per side, and from there we will do the zucchini and get the orzo building. I don't know if you can hear that sizzle through the camera, but it is actually up to temperature, so get these all in here. And again, like I said, this recipe, the reason I love this one so much is it's really flexible with whatever you have on hand. You could make this without the shrimp, and it would be a great side dish, or you could use chicken or any other protein of your choice. Add a little bit more salt and pep in there just to get things nice and seasoned. You want to season as you go with all of the dishes, any recipe you're making. So you might have to do this in batches depending on the size of your pot. But again, want to make sure those shrimp are nice and dry, otherwise you'll steam them versus sear them. And we can check one here. You can kind of see that nice pink color we're getting. I'm going to go ahead and start flipping these because, like I said, we want to pull them before they curl up into a complete C and overcook and get that rubbery shrimp that we've all had before. And try to just keep these going. Oh, that guy needs to. We'll need a little extra time off the heat there. Okay, so once you've got your shrimp flipped, whoops, hopefully a little more gracefully than I'm going here. My on-camera nerves are showing probably. But let me get this heat. Okay. Looks like that was struggling a little bit. So that turned off on me, but we're gonna work through it. It's gonna be back on, and the pan's still hot. So those are gonna take a little bit longer. But your shrimp, make sure that you're flipping them. Get them out of there before, like I said, they curl too tight. You don't want them to be overcooked at this stage. You're gonna put them back in at the end and get things really going. So once mine get going, I'll pull them and we'll do the zucchini. Again, if you're using asparagus, you can cook that in with the broth and the orzo and all of that. But here, I don't want the zucchini to get too soft and mushy and just fall apart. I cut my zucchini into half moons that you can see are about a ½ inch thick. You want them to have sort of that heft so that they, again, don't fall apart on you mid sort of dish. Also, I'll just talk about the cheese here. I start with a block of feta cheese. I like blocked feta because for this dish, I think it's nice to have like that extra little bite of cheese kind of versus it just melting into everything. And this will go in at the end. But I cube this up and I like to let it kind of come to room temperature before I put it into the dish so it doesn't go in super cold. I drained about 1/4 cup. You can do a little less of capers. Again, we salt as we go, but you don't want to over salt because the capers are really salty and you don't want the dish to end up too salty at the end. You can always add more, but not take it away. Okay, after a little air here, the pot, let me turn it back on. So we'll get my shrimp, a few of them aren't quite ready, but some of them you can see are nice and good to go. So I'm going to pull those out and then we'll keep moving along. Hopefully your stovetop didn't turn off on you. The joys of live. Okay. Sean, any questions in the chat or?
Yes, one question. Amy Morrison, 3209. At the stage of doneness for the shrimp, are they fully pink but not yet a C, or a little that's not pink?
They should be fully pink, but just barely. And if they're not fully pink, that's okay. Because again, they're gonna go back in. And shrimp cook very quickly, usually if your pot is on. So you can see, I'm gonna pull some of these. That one's a little over, but we'll be all right because it's just an easy weeknight dinner. But once I get these pulled, I'm gonna immediately drop in my zucchini. If you need to add a little bit more olive oil, feel free to add a drizzle in. But you should be good with that. And we'll get the zucchini in there and get that all in a single layer. We're just gonna let this rock and roll for a couple minutes as well. Again, you're looking at medium to medium high heat, so it's gonna cook faster for you probably than it's cooking for me just because this portable cooktop is a little slower. So again, you'll wanna just put a little bit of salt and pepper on this, but not overdo it. The salt is gonna pull out the liquid from the zucchini, so you wanna watch for that. And then these, I just kind of let them go. Again, I like them to be a little firmer at the finished dish, and they get tossed back in, so they're gonna cook a bit as well. And once they're kind of in here and going, I'll let them go a little bit more on that first side. But once they're kind of just getting a bit of char but not fully cooked all the way through. That's what you're looking for the zucchini. Again, you could put asparagus in this, you could put spinach in, you could put cherry tomatoes. You can cook that just like you would this, but the real reason I do the zucchini separate before we get going with the full orzo is because I don't want it to get mushy throughout. Asparagus will hold up better. On pestoandpotatoes.com, I have a version that uses asparagus, similar recipe. And I just throw the asparagus in, like I said, with the broth and everything else. So these are just getting a light char. I'm not sure if you can see that on here. Whoops. But I'll give these just a quick toss, and by the time I get them all tossed around here, we'll just pull them out here. Again, you don't want these to be too mushy, so just getting a little bit of that color on them will be good to go. How's everyone doing? Those of you cooking along. Any questions? Are we good?
Looks like everyone's good.
Awesome.
They're so out and smelling tasty.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm getting a little smoke here, so hopefully we'll be all right. I'm just gonna pull these right back in here into the bowl that I had them prepped in and set them aside. And I'm gonna turn my heat down because now my pot is getting a little too warm. Once you get all of your zucchini out, whoops. Uh-oh. It's a real comedy of errors with this new cooktop because it keeps turning off. Or I just turned it off that time. My little wooden spoon isn't being too cooperative with me. All right, so that char in the pan, that's sort of obviously going to happen with this kind of a cast iron. I've got my heat down again, but hopefully this won't sizzle too much. Add a little bit more olive oil, and it's time to start building the flavor for the orzo. One medium-ish yellow onion dice is going to go in there. And we're going to let that cook for a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. I think I say 5 minutes on the recipe. You want that to get nice and soft and really get things going. And so you'll start to see it's going to pick up some of that charred bits. That's just what I like to call flavor, everyone. So that's what we'll have going here. So once this gets going, you can see it's picking up the salt and pepper from the shrimp and zucchini. So no, I'm not going to add any more yet. Again, there's plenty of salt in the capers, and we can taste it at the end and know if we need to add anything else. Okay, now my pan's super hot, so these onions are kind of rocking and rolling here. But once you've got your onions kind of cooked in, you want to add your minced garlic. I did 4 cloves. You know what? If you buy that garlic stuff that's pre-minced, that's great. It's a shortcut. Go that route. But I use a lot of garlic in this, again, because I'm trying to flavor up the broth with this onion and garlic sort of base. And it really kind of holds up really beautifully with all of the other elements that are going to be coming together. Okay, so those are getting nice and soft. They're starting to be a little translucent. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop my garlic in, let that go until I can smell it. So usually you'll see recipes say like about 30 seconds or until fragrant. So what I've got here, I can smell it. I can start to smell the garlic. So I don't want to let it go too long or it's going to burn. Now it's time. I've measured out my cup of orzo, and I'm going to put this in, and we're going to toast that up. This is a really beautiful, nutty orzo already. So the idea here is that you're going to like just toast it a bit. So, you know, about a minute, we're going to let that go before we add the stock in, and then we put the lid on, set a timer, and cook this stuff for 8 to 9 minutes for this particular orzo. Cooks a little faster than a traditional orzo. And again, you're going to put in 2.5 cups of stock. And for that, we're going to, I've pre-measured it, but you can use, I'm a pescatarian, so I use veggie broth or veggie stock. You can use beef or chicken or whatever you want. Chicken would work really well, probably better than beef. But we're gonna let this, once this starts getting toasty, you're gonna smell that as well. And again, this works with any orzo, but I really love this gluten-free brown rice orzo from Jovial because it's just like extra, extra nutty. And gluten-free, and I have a lot of friends and folks who are gluten-free. So always trying to be mindful of that, whether they have celiac or just prefer to take it easy on the gluten. Okay. That's going. I'm going to go ahead and put my broth in. And what I do when I put my broth or stock in is I pour a little bit in slowly, and you'll see it's going to start steaming. And I start scraping those bits on the pan. And my overhead camera is probably steaming out the image of this. But this is a nice way to get those brown bits off the bottom. Again, that's not burnt, that's flavor, folks. So scrape that up. It also helps when someone's doing the dishes for you. They appreciate it if the bottom of the pan isn't too dark and messy. So once we get all that in there, we're going to put on the lid, and this will probably come to a simmer very quickly, so you want to watch it, but putting a lid on will help kind of keep things moving along without drying it out, and it'll cook well. So I'm going to put a lid on there. I'm going to watch it just because this one is a little finicky today, but you want it to be at a low simmer. And it's going to be more liquid than you would normally put in the orzo because you want that to create kind of a sauce versus being like a regular, like sort of rice grain, cooked rice texture. So as that's kind of going, we'll talk through a couple of other elements here. Let me just get things kind of cleaned up. And one of the other things that I wanted to mention, I think, about this dish is this is great to make on a Sunday if you're meal prepping lunches for work for the week. I actually love to just eat the leftovers cold from the fridge. I don't mind cold shrimp. It almost eats like a sort of a pasta salad of sorts. It works really well cold or at room temperature if you have leftovers there. So I'm just going to check on this. Great. Mine's up to a simmer. Let me show you what that looks like. You can pull the lid every once in a while and just stir things around just to make sure nothing gets stuck on the bottom. But you do want to try to keep the lid on for the better part of your 8 or 9 minutes to soak some of that up. Let me get my zucchini off to the side here. And I'll talk about these herbs. So we're going to put parsley and fresh dill quite a bit in this. Again, put as much or as little as you want. But I love fresh dill, and I love to use it. I have some in a jar here. I buy it in these bunches. I don't store this in a jar, actually. I store it in the refrigerator. I put a wet paper towel around the bottom, and then I put it in a zip top bag and keep this in my crisper drawer. This is gonna last for weeks and stay really fresh with that moist paper towel. So just cold water, wring out a paper towel, wrap it around the bottom, tuck it into a sealed bag, and then that goes in the crisper drawer. I like to chop up some fresh dill, sprinkle on my eggs in the morning. It's a nice herb to have, especially this time of year. But I'm just gonna pull some from here, and I just pull it off. And this, because it's really like fresh stuff, you just pull off everything except for those woody stems, and you're just gonna chop that up. We're gonna add this in at the end. So I like to do, again, a lot of dill, a lot of flavor in that. So that's about 1/4 cup, but do what you want with that. There's a couple woody stems that I got in there. So get those chopped up so we don't have any little bits. And then for the parsley, I just keep my parsley on the counter just like this in a jar with water. Replace the water every 2 to 3 days. I use a lot of fresh herbs, so this is how I store it out on the counter. If I'm not going to use it as quickly, I'll put this in the fridge and I'll take one of those bags that you get produce in at the store. If you take one of those bags from the store instead of throwing it in the trash, turn it upside down and create a little dome. Then put that jar in the fridge just loosely over the top, and that will keep your parsley for quite a bit longer. So a couple tablespoons of parsley here. I'm gonna chop that up. I got a little carried away. And then that's just our dill and parsley that we'll put in at the end for the flavoring. So let me check my orzo here again, just to make sure things are going. Yep, I'm still simmering. A lot of liquid in there. You're gonna notice that. Give it a stir, but then put the lid right back on. Make sure you get all those bits off your spoon, or you'll have crunchy orzo bits. Okay, so the real part of this is that waiting game. So that's why if you wanted to cut your cheese into cubes at this point, that's a great thing to do. If you haven't drained your capers, you can do that now. You can start getting your lemons ready. But this is really, it's a very quick meal because the shrimp is such a fast cooking protein and the veg and everything there. So once that is ready to go, we're gonna start layering in these other elements. I do usually put the capers in when it's at the beginning, right there when we're doing everything. But I'm gonna put them in like when it's about halfway through here or a little bit further, so that they can kind of not get too mushed down. So go ahead and add those in if you haven't already. I think in the recipe I say to add them in at the beginning, but really those don't need to cook too much. But you want to add them in before you add any more salt at this point because, like I said, they're salty and briny. They have vinegar. Capers are just caper berries with, usually in the jar, they have vinegar, salt, and a little bit of water. So kind of like a little pickle, if you're not familiar with that. Okay, any questions? How's everyone doing as we're cooking along? I've just been yapping away.
Everybody seems to just be following along.
All right. Excellent. One more thing I think on the herbs. These, like I said, will go back in the fridge in a container, and mostly put them out here for sort of this demo. But this olive oil, this is actually a Jovial. It's their sister brand from Jovial Foods. This and Jovial in the Jovial label brand, they have an olive oil, and both of those are, like I said, on the Food Social Market. And I think Sean has dropped that market link into the chat, or he will do that if you're not seeing that. And again, there's thousands of products on the Food Social Market that you can shop and always use anytime. Code Pesto for 10% off, and that's a great, just a kind of a great thing to remember. Father's Day is coming up this weekend. I actually went on the Food Social Market and bought my dad some steaks from US Wellness Meats. A lot of great brands, but go check it out if you've never been on the market. There's a lot of fun things to explore, and if you've followed me for very long at all, you know that I've been on Food Social for a few years now, and you can always find my recipes over there as well as pestoandpotatoes.com. Okay, just because I am not so good at sitting around, I'm gonna just check this. You can see that in my version here, the stock is getting, it's kind of getting soaked up by the orzo, so we're getting close there. Again, you want it to not be, you don't want it to be fully soupy, but you don't want to have it be dried out because once you put all these other elements in, it's going to pull the moisture. Like the zucchini will soak up some of that flavor from the stock and all that good stuff. All right.
35 seconds.
All right. So Sean's my timekeeper because I would normally use the stove. That's getting us pretty close here. What I'm gonna do once we kind of get to this this section is I'm gonna add my lemon in, and I'm gonna add my zucchini and shrimp back in with the cheese. Again, the shrimp is gonna finish cooking if it's not already cooked, so no fear of that. One thing that I didn't note about the shrimp is that I use this tail on shrimp, which can be annoying when you're eating it to take the tails off, but I find that tail on helps the shrimp from overcooking, so you're not going to get chewy shrimp. So, okay, we're about at, like, looks like the time here. Let me just check. This is pretty good. Let me set my, I'm gonna turn my heat down to more of a medium situation. Put my lid in the background here. You can see that, you can kind of see there's still a little bit of liquid, but when you run a spoon through it, it's a little more liquidy than I would want, quite honestly. But it's gonna get there. I can tell that the orzo's cooked because I can tell by running my spoon through. But you can taste a little bit of it if you're not sure if your orzo's quite cooked. And then you're gonna start layering in everything else. So normally I would just put this down to really low heat. So if you're doing this now, drop it down to like super low heat, and then you can add everything back in. I'm gonna go ahead and drop my zucchini in there. Just stir that in. And then I'm gonna wait to add my shrimp in just because I wanna let that zucchini soak up some of that liquid for me. There you go, you can kind of see it's getting a little thicker right there. On the lemon, I use 2 lemons for this. And these are seedless lemons, but I am again, if you follow me for very long, this is my #1 kitchen tool. It's a zester. I use it every day. But you can zest 1 or 2 lemons right into the pot, depending on how much you want. So I'm just gonna do a little lemon zest in. All right, that should do the trick. And then for this lemon, I just learned this fun new trick that before you cut it in half, just make a slit on 4 sides all the way around. Just a little bit through there. And then when you cut your lemon in half, you're gonna see those slits will be there. And then put your lemon, it seems like you would put it in this way, but you're gonna put it this way, and those slits will help you get all that juice out of each lemon. And it kind of breaks the lemon apart. So you can see you're getting all the juice out of that, if you can see that there. So I'm gonna add that lemon in. The lemon is really kind of another acid hit, but it's just a really great balance for everything. I'm just gonna use that zest of that one, but we're gonna do 1 more lemon just for good measure. All right. So nice and juicy lemons. And we'll get a lot of lemon in there. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add my cheese, my cubes of cheese. That's gonna start melting into everything. And then I'm gonna add my shrimp back in, and we are getting near the finish line here. Okay. Now my shrimp are gonna go in, and they'll just finish cooking without overcooking. Just stir those in and let them kind of warm back through or finish cooking. It might take another minute or so. And again, if shrimp isn't your thing, well, you're probably not going to be in this class if shrimp's not your thing. But if you're watching along and wanting to make a similar dish to this, you can just leave the shrimp out, and this makes a nice side dish for whatever you want. You could flake in some cooked salmon, or if you eat chicken, some cooked chicken would go well with this as well. But the shrimp and the capers and the lemon and all that, it's sort of the vibe for me, especially with these fresh herbs we're going to dump in. Before I put the herbs in, I'm going to give it a quick taste just for seasoning. I think there's enough salt. I might add just a few pinches of pepper here. If you want a little extra heat, you could put some red pepper flakes. Then I'm going to drop in all those fresh herbs, and that is really what makes this magical. All right, as we're wrapping up here, any additional questions, feel free to drop those in the chat, and we'll get to that. But this is what you're going to end up with, and it's just a nice, hearty, weeknight dinner with that gluten-free orzo. And again, the full recipe on Food Social, as well as over 200 of my recipes there.
If someone forgot to get fresh dill, would dry dill work instead?
You could use a little bit of dry dill. The fresh dill is really, really nice, but of course you could use dry dill. I just wouldn't overdo it because it's not going to have the same like sort of punch. I go really, really dill heavy on this particular dish. Same with the capers. I want it to have those really strong flavors, but dry dill, maybe a half a teaspoon to start. Put that in there and then add as you go. Again, just like with everything, taste as you go so you're not getting things too off balance. If there's no other questions, I'll kind of wrap up by saying thank you again to the team at Food Social for helping me kind of pull this class together. If you want me to do more of these classes, if you want to do a monthly cadence or whatnot, let me know. Feel free to go to pestopotatoes.com and subscribe to my newsletter. That's the best way to find out about things right in your inbox. I send a Sunday newsletter. I'm on Substack every Wednesday. I send a journalism sort of style column about food. This week I wrote about this class and this sort of weeknight dish that I love so much and that we just made together today. But again, Food Social, find me on foodsocial.io. Check out the market, use code PESTO for 10% off. And then you also can find a lot of these Jovial products probably in your own stores, but definitely order from the market. It's a way to support creators like me and other creators. There's tons of us on there. One other thing that I would just say is that if you're not following on Instagram, that's a great spot to see some of my video work and different things like that. But in terms of like this class, I really would love your feedback. So feel free to drop in my DMs on Instagram or send me an email through the website and let me know what you thought. You'll get a follow-up email from me with all of these details as well. So if there are no other questions, we will call that good and go enjoy your lemon-herb shrimp and orzo, and I hope that this recipe makes it into your regular rotation. Thank you all so much for attending and have a fantastic day.